Lorna. Lorna had acne and long, unruly hair, and liked wearing long, hippie dresses, even during the long, hot days of summer. She had a part-time job at the public library and, in lieu of a social life, worked every Friday night. One particularly quiet Friday, a tall, dark young man came up to the desk and said, "Do you have any books on werewolves?" "Do we have any books on werewolves?" Lorna said, it being standard library procedure to repeat any and all questions from patrons. The young man just stared at her, and Lorna became aware that he was quite good-looking, with fine, aquiline features. Let's have a look in the card catalog," she said finally, stepping from behind the desk. As she walked over to the card drawers, she could feel him behind her, his eyes drinking in her body. We do have a book on werewolves," she told him, unable to totally conceal her surprise that the library owned such a thing. It's called The Book of Werewolves by Sabrina Baring-Gould," Lorna said, having unconsciously lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. To herself, Lorna said, "Sabrina Baring-Gould. I wonder who she was." "Show it to me," the young man said, and Lorna noticed he had an unusually husky voice. They walked over to the stacks in silence. Lorna was sure he was undressing her with his dark eyes as he followed her into a quiet corner of the building. In the 398s, the folklore section, Lorna pulled a dark green permabound volume off the shelf. Turning to the young man, Lorna whispered, "The Book of Werewolves by the Reverend. The Reverend Sabina Baring-Gould. You know, it says here on the back, he also wrote Onward, Christian Soldiers." "What?" the young man whispered back, his knitted brows forming a single dark line above his hard, staring eyes. It's a hymn," Lorna stammered in amazement. "Everyone knew Onward, Christian Soldiers. Didn't they? "I don't know any hymns," the young man said, grabbing the book and turning away. She heard him mumble something which she thought was thanks, but he didn't turn around. For the rest of her shift, Lorna avoided looking at the young man, and at 9:10, she phoned her father to remind him to pick her up. From the Book of Werewolves by the Reverend Sabine Baring-Gould. In France, in Victorian times, an English clergyman decided to explore some prehistoric standing stones erected by the ancient Druids. The circular cromlech was on a lonely hilltop, and the divine was unable to find it until just before sundown. A tiny village lay at the base of the hill. Not wanting to walk back to the inn in the dark, the clergyman went to the one meager wine shop in search of a carriage, or at least a horse, to convey him the miles back to his destination. But no carriage and no horse was to be had. The village priest offered his fellow clergy the hospitality of his tiny abode, but the minister was determined to return to his inn. "My family is waiting for me there," he said. "They will be worried if I don't come back." The mayor turned to the peasants who sat at the rude tables listening to the conversation. Someone will have to go with Monsieur and guide him back. A statement which led to a general uproar, with all the men talking and gesticulating wildly. The clergyman, who was having some difficulty following the local dialect, realized they seemed to be repeating one particular phrase. Loup Garou! Loup Garou! Loup Garou! What is the Loup Garou? The clergyman said. A wolf? Oh, Monsieur l'Englishman, said one particularly excited peasant. The Loup Garou is a fiend, but worse than a fiend, a man fiend, or even worse, a wolf-man fiend, a werewolf. Picou saw it last week, skulking behind a hedge, said another. It was as big as a calf, its tongue hanging out, and its eyes blazing like marsh flames. What could 2 men, 4 or 5 men do against something like that? As big as a calf, he concluded, crossing himself. I see I have no choice but to return alone, the divine said disapprovingly through pursed lips. In any event, the walk may do me good. But Monsieur, the Loup Garou, sputtered the excited peasant. The Loup Garou doesn't concern Englishmen, the minister answered curtly as he gathered up his hat and walking stick. Turning to the mayor, he added, If I should happen to meet with the Loup Garou, I shall crop his ears and tail and present them to Monsieur le Maire, with my compliments. And then he stepped out into the night. And the next morning, a broken walking stick was found on the ground in front of the mayor's door, and nailed to the door a pair of severed human ears. To be continued. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, Werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,021 subs in 2021. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used today, courtesy of Pix here, that's PX here, while the music was that classic Ghost Processional by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod.